Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 31 of The Cosmic Force. I am one of your hosts, Emma Park, and tonight we are back after what feels like forever. We have missed you guys, but we're back discussing one of the recent comic books, some recent comic news, and running down what's on this weekly pull list. So we'll be talking about the High Republic adventures tonight. Very exciting. But first, it is our very own Caleb Namanak. He's been playing Halo. We've been playing Halo. He got me into Halo. Actually, everybody got me into Halo, you know. Talk about it, Caleb.
It's a group effort. Like I was talking to a different friend, a coworker, and he said it's like Halo Infinite right now, which just hit its like open multiplayer. It's weird. You're talking to people you haven't talked to in like 12 years and forming huge, massive fire fights. So it's great. If you haven't got onto it, you should give it a try. Halo is really, really good. But more importantly, it's the Christmas season. So I have all sorts of Christmas paraphernalia. Got a single Christmas tree flickering in the background. Got my presents tie. Have my little wife's advent calendar. It's time for the season. But first, It is time to round out the trifecta of tonight. Jacob, how are you doing?
I'm alive. Barely. It's finals weeks, finals month, folks. So can't wait to go talk civil procedure tomorrow. So fun. But for tonight, I get a slight respite. I get a little relaxation. I get to talk about the High Republic Adventures Volume 1. So I'm very excited to do that with you too.
Absolutely. Now, just so you know, Tyler is out today. He just had to run off. I know we've been on hiatus, and suddenly realized we went on hiatus. Now we're back with a 3-person crew. No, Tyler just had a little last minute thing that he had to run to do. So we'll be covering on, but he will be here next week.
Absolutely. So with that, if you are joining us for the very first time, welcome. We are a Star Wars comics podcast that broadcasts live right here on youtube.com/Utini every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern. If you can't join us live, that is okay, because we're also available on all of your favorite podcast platforms. We're also part of the Utini Podcast Network with nearly a dozen shows and a Discord channel at utini.com/Discord with more than 1,000 members and dozens of channels to choose from. If you like what you see and want to say thanks, then head over to our Patreon channel at patreon.com/Utini, where for as little as $5 a month, you can gain exclusive access to the entire Utini Podcast Network of shows, as well as exclusive merch and community involvement activities. So, boys, we have a little bit of news to cover here first. Some exciting stuff. Caleb, do you want to take our first bit of news here?
Absolutely. I was almost about to say 10-year being gone, but after a while, during the entire 80s and 90s, and early 2000s, Star Wars was run by Dark Horse Comics, and they've put out a litany of really great series. They lost their license when Marvel bought out the company, been subbing things out to IDW, and as we're about to talk about later on today. But very recently, as in like 2 weeks ago, they officially announced that Dark Horse is regaining the license to Star Wars comics. What that looks like, we have no idea. They have not announced any new series. They haven't announced what's going to happen to all the Dark Horse comics that were on Marvel Unlimited. It is an exciting time, though, because Dark Horse has had a lot of really great series over the years, and we may or may not be planning to talk about them in a lot more detail, but it's exciting. I think it's very interesting. Now, to be fair, I haven't read a Dark Horse comic modern what's going on, so hopefully their publishing and their management is in a really great strict step right now. That said, it sure looks like if LucasArts is going back to them, but we shall see what happens in the future, maybe in a couple of months when things start getting announced and released.
Yeah, so this is actually really interesting. Do you guys know? So obviously, Dark Horse is taking over the license for IDW, and IDW is more focused on sort of the younger audience. Does Dark Horse do any younger audience comic books? Does anybody know?
I don't know any of any that they've done. Although, again, I'm not like Caleb. I don't read Dark Horse out of Star Wars. So we'll see. I mean, from what it seems, because like the rumor for a while that we talked about was that the IDW license was going away for all ages comics, not just Star Wars, but for Marvel in general. Because Marvel had their all ages imprint for all their regular superheroes done with IDW as well. So we didn't know what was going to happen. We thought a lot of these like High Republic adventures we're talking about tonight and Star Wars adventures might go away, but it seems like they are, at least in spirit, transferring over to Dark Horse. We don't know yet really anything, if it will just be the same name for a different publisher, or if it will be completely different. But the quote that they had was, "We're gonna have stories from the High Republic all the way through the rise of the First Order," which would be the High Republic adventures through what Star Wars Adventures 2020 has been a lot of First Order or sequel era stuff. At least that's where it started. Yeah. So that's kind of what we're looking at right now.
Yeah, I think this is, exciting, but also there's a lot of unknowns still. I know that Legends fans are excited. Dark Horse was kind of the golden age there of comics, but so yeah, very interesting news there. And Jacob, we've got some exciting stuff starting next week. Tell us about that.
Yeah, we do. It is crazy. I just kind of realized this today that Crimson Reign starts next week, it got delayed. I think it was technically supposed to start this week. But it's comics. So comics in 2020-21, if it doesn't get delayed, I don't know. It's a lie. I don't know what to tell you. So yeah, it starts next week, which is insane to me. We just finished War of the Bounty Hunters. We got like a 1-issue little breather for all the comics, and we're back in the Crimson Reign, although it won't be a full-on crossover. Charles Soule did an interview with like CBR a few weeks ago that kind of outlined it a little bit more. But yeah, we are starting Crimson Reign season next week. It's the start of the 5-issue miniseries. It's the 5-issue miniseries on the second part of the Kira trilogy. So a lot of words, a lot of excitement.
The fact that you just said Kira trilogy just now made me so happy. It's just going to be awesome, man. Like, definitely. The fact that we're getting so many characters like what was it, Ren, and Chaneth Cha, and the preview that was on StarWars.com a few weeks ago got me really, really hyped, and I can't wait to see what happens. I hope we get some like flashbacks with her and Maul. That'd be really, really cool. I need to know what happened on Dathomir, man.
Exactly. It looks like you're gearing up with a ton of like side characters and extra characters. So it's going to be crazy to see how this whole thing is going to shake loose in the next couple of months. Like the first issue of War of the Bounty Hunters really blew us away. I don't know if we'll have something quite that drastic, such a huge like shift, but who knows? Right. Comics can surprise us. We shall see what happens in 7 days.
Absolutely. I mean, issue 1 of War of the Bounty Hunters brings in Kira. There's, absolute shock, like out of the blue. I don't know how you can beat that excitement right there, but who knows? I mean, listen, they surprise us all the time.
Yeah, we just bring in Shizor, issue 1. And
yeah, it's time for him to come back into canon because he's just as well beloved as people like, the Ook, the clone slave, and Thrawn.
Yeah,
he's in the same caliber as Thrawn, right, guys?
Oh, of course, absolutely, yeah, for sure. We love that.
He infamous for the exact same reasons, obviously. Yes,
exactly.
I mean, and maybe I don't know, maybe a naked Palpatine will show up. That's like just as infamous in the Utini circle.
I mean,
I would say
Dark Horse is back, so
yeah, Dark Horse is back. Maybe now naked Palpatine will be back. All bets are off. Who knows?
It's all coming together.
It is. It's all coming together. Where's Jared at?
I think he still has about like 5 more minutes before he's done with his Wednesday evening obligation. But yeah, no. Although now that we've said Legends, he might be cutting a little early.
He might show up. All right. With that, next up is our weekly pull list. We've got 3 awesome comics this week. Jacob, take it away.
Yeah, we start off with Darth Vader number 18, Red Revenge, written by Greg Pak, with pencils by Leonard Kirk. The cover is by Aaron Cooter. The colorist is Alex Sinclair, and the letterer is Joe Caramagna. Then we have Bounty Hunters number 18, Galaxy's Greatest, written by Ethan Sachs, pencils by Ramon Box. The cover is by Giuseppe Camuncoli. The colorist is Brian Valenza. The letterer is Travis Lanham. And then lastly, we have The High Republic Adventures number 11, written by Daniel Jose Older. The artist is Harvey Tolibao, and the colors are from Rebecca Nolte. So, as always, you can pick up those 3 comics using the links in the YouTube description down below. I don't know what you guys thought. I've not had a chance to read High Republic Adventures. Darth Vader, it's it's feeling like a transition issue, which it was. But I'm interested to see where it's going. And a little bit of the same with Bounty Hunters, but I did like it a little bit more, which surprised me.
Like
I agree.
Bounty Hunters has been like really good these last like 2 volumes. Like everything is starting to hit now. Like Valence is kind of like a generic superhero. So he's kind of boring when he's just doing his own thing, but now that he's having like extra things to play off of, I think his character's working a lot better off this time around.
I just really need to reread volume 1 and 2 to figure out who the heck like
Same.
The Unchained or all these like Corellian like crime syndicates. I'm like, you all kind of are the same to me.
Major same for me.
The Montagues and
Capulets.
Capulets and Montagues.
Yes, exactly. I mean, they could be called that, and I couldn't even tell you if you were right or not. But yeah, I think this might have been the first week ever that I thought Bounty Hunters was better than Darth Vader, which feels really weird to say. Or at least I enjoyed it more than Darth Vader. The ending of Darth Vader was fantastic.
Yes, that's true.
And I did read The High Republic Adventures. Boy, that is heating up. Daniel Jose Older, man, he's so good. He's so good. So yeah, I highly recommend reading that. We are going to be skipping what we're loving this week because it is a roundtable episode, but we do have a brand new ad for you. if you haven't heard yet, Utini Gifts is now, and not gifts like GIFS, it's gifts, GIFTS. That's very important. Is now launched for the holiday season. So we are going to roll an ad all about that. Be back in a bit.
Hey everybody, it is Eric, president of Utini and co-host of The Living Force, which you may be watching right now, here to tell you about something that's going to make the holidays a bit easier. We have made a new website for you called utini.gifts. Now, this is a website that is based around the fact that shopping for Star Wars fans is very hard. We like a lot of things, we also don't like a lot of things. So we at Utini have made some curated gift guides for you to make shopping for those in your life a little easier, and to make shopping for you a bit easier for people in your life. So whether you want Star Wars apparel, you want collectibles, you want stuff for gamers, you want stuff that's only featuring the child, you want stuff for your office, kitchen, what have you, we got guides for you curated through sites like Etsy, through sites like Amazon, through anything you can imagine. We have scoured the internet for really fun stuff. Head over to utini.gifts, that's gifts plural, like things you're gonna find under the tree. Get shopping today, get anything you want for the Star Wars fan in your life, and let us know what you think.
All right, we are back. I have to say that Utini Gifts project was a lot of fun to work on. I can't believe how fast Corey got that organized. It's insane.
He crowdsourced a lot of labor. He like literally 2 weeks ago, he just like dropped an entire Excel spreadsheet and it's like, hey, go to Amazon and find links.
Yes, absolutely. But you know what? It wasn't super hard to convince people to do it because the collectors on the team, like myself, I felt like I was born to do this. So here we go. If you're watching us live on YouTube, we have the Jacob showing off the website right now. There's a bunch of different guides that you can get for gifts. This is the Funko one. So we have just a bunch of products that our team really love that fit a bunch of different categories. We've got different characters and
got a lot of
themes.
Grogu. A lot of Grogu.
A lot lot of Grogu.
Like,
I was the one that did the Grogu
tag.
guide. So
He has a specific tag, yes.
He does. And you know what? It didn't take me very long to find like more than 20 Grogu items. And yeah, so gotta love Grogu. So if you're looking to shop for the Star Wars fan in your life, definitely check this out. If I knew any Star Wars fans in my life, in my family, which I don't, but if I did, I would definitely be using this website.
You know, I found it very useful for Secret Santa stuff, like trying to give recommendations for stuff to buy me. It's like, well, I don't know, like whatever. But it's like, hey, here's this website. Go find something for me under $25. There you go. It's like, that's about it. Like anything you pick there, I'm probably going to enjoy. So
it's perfect. It's like a Star Wars fans wish list, basically.
It is.
All right. So now let's dive right into our roundtable on the first volume of Star Wars, The High Republic Adventures. A little bit of background on this. It's written by Daniel José Older with art by Harvey Tolibao. The colors are by Rebecca Nalty, letters from Jake Wood. And this contains the issues 1 through 5 of The High Republic Adventures. It also has a B story from Star Wars Adventures number 6, which I actually didn't know that. I have the individual issues on Comixology and I didn't have the trade. So that's an interesting tidbit.
Yeah.
For those that read it, does that have anything to do with what with the High Republic?
Yeah. It was it's actually I actually have the floppy issue right here. This was the B cover with Dr. Udersound and Marching Row. It was like Mari
Santeca, yeah.
Yeah, it was just a like the back issue or the back story was a little story about like them running through the Gaze Electric on like a little mission. Not the main characters. There's like some random Nihil doing a mission. So Mike actually in our chat let me know that was in there because mine was delayed coming from my LCS. But yeah, it was a fun issue. It was a fun little thing. They didn't tell us it was going to be in there, but yeah, you can go
nice
find
surprise.
out a little John. I love the art on this. It, like kind of like Cam Kennedy-esque colors,
Yeah,
watercolor
I can see
on this
that.
first page, at least on the first page.
Yeah, to kind of watercolored green.
Yeah. So yeah,
Yeah,
it's a
very
nice
cool.
nice little surprise.
Fancy.
Surprise to be sure, but a welcome one. Bam.
Of course.
All right, so we are going to go around and rate this as we usually do. So I'm going to start with Caleb. Caleb, what do you rate this book, and give a brief explanation as to why?
Okay. Out of 10, I liked it. I think repeated rereads have actually made it not as well remembered in my mind. So I think maybe it's like sitting at a very comfortable 7.5, 7.5. It's still really good. It could probably be a little, I think when I first read it, it was probably in the like an 8.5, but now I've read it a couple more times. I don't know if I am just not paying as close attention as it was, but I feel like I've read this several times over and it's starting to lose its magic, but let's say 7.5 for now.
Mm-hmm.
All right, fair enough. Jacob, how about you?
I'm gonna go pretty high. I'm gonna give it a 9 to start with.
Nice.
I really, for me, when I read it the first time, I of course I really like the Marvel series, but this one started strong out of the gate. I thought the Marvel issues took 2 or 3 issues at least to like really get going. So like the fact that this started so strong really helped, and I just love all the characters. Like Quart's my boy. I love him. I hope nothing bad ever happens to him. And yeah, like I think it's just a very enjoyable comic, and even though it is for all ages, I think as a 25-year-old man, I can enjoy it a lot. So I'm gonna give it a 9.
Nice. Yeah, I think what you just said there at the end is like the epitome of what Star Wars is. Like, yeah, we're older, but like we can enjoy it too. So personally, I'm going to give this an 8.5 out of 10. I really enjoyed it, and I agree with you, Jacob. I thought that this started stronger than the Marvel series, even though the Marvel series started out really strong as well. I definitely was not expecting to enjoy this as much as I have been. The characters are just a lot of fun. I love just how silly it can be, but it doesn't feel like the silliness takes away from anything, which is always a fun balance to strike. I love Daniel Jose Older's writing, and I think he's a great comic writer, especially, I mean, we've seen him in like Trail of Shadows, which is aimed toward a more older audience. He can kind of do it all, and I think that this shows it as well. You can still have high stakes even if it's not directed towards an older audience. So 8.5 from me. Now, Tyler is not here tonight. However, his son Mason was able to, he read this actually, and which was a ton of fun because this is aimed more towards his age range. So we're going to have a few clips from Mason throughout the night, and he has his rating. So let's hear from Mason.
My rating for the entire book would be a 9.5 out of 10. Is because that book 3 did not interest me. I was bored out of my mind. And book 4 wasn't that fun. I wasn't completely bored out of my mind. I was still trying. Book 3, I was like trying to zoom through it because I'm like, this is so boring. And yeah, there's a little good parts where they talked about like important stuff about like they talked about like if you do want to become a Jedi, could we train you to become a Jedi? That's like the stuff they talked about that was exciting. Book 4, it had a little bit of excitement. I wasn't trying to rush through that. I was still trying to read and see the excitement. There's a little bit of excitement, but it was at the end and at the beginning. The middle was just straight up boring.
Harsh. The harshest rating the harshest review I've ever seen for a 9.5 rating. I'll say that.
I know. Exactly. I thought I was the Russian judge here with my 7.5.
Oh, that was great. Well, We're going to be hearing more from Mason a little later. This is a ton of fun for us, by the way, because we are adults and these are not written for us. They are written for people like Mason. So I love hearing his perspective. So I'm looking forward to hearing more from him throughout the night. So
yeah, I will say, I believe Tyler said that the reason he like Mason was someone that like he liked reading the action. So when there were not fight scenes, the issues 3 or 4, or whatever, that's when he got bored. So, for people
that makes sense. I can see that. Like as a kid, I could see not caring as much about the quieter character moments. And
it's called Star Wars, but where did all the lore go?
Yeah, exactly, man. Oh, that's fantastic. So we're going to jump right into our summary here before we dive a little deeper into the meat of this thing. So I'm going to kick it off, starting with issue 1. Let's do it. The planet of Trimit 4 is in the throes of a deadly emergence as the Jedi Padawans under Jedi Master Yoda rush to help save who they can. Planetside, Zine and her friend Crix are looking for an escape and almost find it aboard a Nihil ship. But the Jedi arrive and a firefight ensues. Zine, to save the Jedi and herself, awakens in her hidden abilities with the Force to drive off a falling chunk of debris. In issue 2, the Nihil push the attack against the Padawans as Yoda sneaks aboard the enemy ship. He makes contact with Crix, and Yoda gives him a transmitter, which connects to another transmitter that he's going to give Zine, but is chased off of the ship before the Nihil make the jump into hyperspace. Caleb, I'm going to toss it over to you for the boring issue.
I just relabeled it in the notes to issue 3, the boring issue.
I saw that.
Yes, but and he's not wrong. It's a very much a setup. In issue 3, Zine makes it back to the Starlight Beacon where she's integrated with the Jedi, while on the Gaze Electric, minor side note here, I think that's the greatest name for a starship I've ever come across in Star Wars. I just love the Gaze Electric as like the name of a ship.
It's sick.
It's great. Anyway, on the Gaze Electrics, Crix survives a Bogareth fight and impresses the eye of the Nihil. Now, each side aware of the communication between the two of them sets up a trap using the same bait of the separated friends. Issue 4 kicks off with Yoda and the rest of the adult Jedi engaging in a deadly space battle with the Nihil. The Padawans, stuck home alone, are a little distraught, a little bored, but unfortunately, Crix and the Nihil are setting up a trap on the trash yard moon of Quartrix, which is actually above Ord Mantell. Crix then messages Zine, who she sneaks out to meet up with her friend and bring him back. But Lula and the rest of the Padawans cram themselves into a vector and chase after.
Yeah, so then we pick up with issue 5. The battle on the trash moon is heating up between the Jedi and the Nihil. And then Crix and Zine make contact with each other. But it's clear that both of them, with their time apart, have come to different agreements on how the galaxy is. Yeah, they are torn apart by the Nihil and the Jedi. So they go from there, and after that, Zine decides to dedicate herself to her new friends, while Crix alternatively stays with the Nihil and becomes a little mentee of Martian Row.
Yes, we get helmetless Martian Row in this book. That's hot Martian.
Oh no,
Martian. Well, we don't have to say that. If you figure it out yourselves.
Go on Twitter, you'll see.
Yes. Here's the entire squad. So that was the kind of brief rundown here. So let's talk a little bit more about the meat and potatoes of this whole story, the characters. We didn't mention her too much by name, but kind of the main central character of this whole narrative is Jedi Padawan Lula Talsola.
Tali Sola.
Tali Sola.
I wasn't, should probably put a little hyphen there so I know where that is. Yeah, Lula Tali Sola. She's kind of our main character. She's kind of a major point of view character for the very first issue. Got a couple discussion questions here. So, of our main characters, like, how do we feel about her? Like, when we think back to her character, like, what are some of the things that jump out to you two?
I think that the main thing that jumps out to me is how she questions herself as a Jedi. She questions like her confidence and how she thinks everybody around her is definitely confident in what they're doing, even though they're not. I mean, nobody's had to deal with a threat like the Nihil before, and she feels very self-conscious about her abilities in battle and saving people. She doesn't feel like she's ready yet. And I liked seeing that perspective, honestly, especially in somebody so young. She has these great masters to look up to. I mean, she's like traveling the galaxy with Master Yoda and buckets of blood. Like she's got some really awesome mentors there. So she definitely has, some doubts about herself. And I think it's going to be really great to see. And this is kind of informed a little bit by reading ahead, obviously, because we're through 11 issues now, but seeing how her confidence grows. And I think that above all, I think that's like really important for kids to see. Like, you can doubt yourself, get better at your skill or at what you do, and then feel better about it, I guess. So I think that overall, I think she's just a great vehicle for this overarching lesson.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think when I first started reading this, I was very scared because we had, at least how it was presented early on, it was like you have Vernestra, who's like the best Padawan ever, and you have Wreath, who's like the best Padawan like of all of his friends, and then you have Lula, who's like the best Padawan on the like Starhopper. I think it's Starhopper is their ship.
Starhopper, yeah.
Yeah, it's like you have all these three people which are like the best, and it's like, well, that's kind of, at first I was like, that's kind of boring. Like they all kind of sound the same, but like I've been so happy over the past two phases to see how they have grown and become very different from each other. And I think for Lula, a lot of that is her. She's, despite the fact she's completely capable, we haven't seen her fail yet, really.
Right.
She's still like questioning herself and like unsure and always like second guessing everything. So I think it's an interesting way to take it, and especially as someone who is second guessing everything they're doing with exams coming up this week. It is a bit I feel Lula pretty strongly. So
okay. Well,
I mean, that just proves to you that these lessons can they're meant for kids, but they can totally apply to adults. That is like the perfect example of that. Absolutely.
So that kind of bleeds into my next question I wrote here. Does she do a lot to differentiate herself from the other Padawans we have seen before? Like, not just in the High Republic, but like throughout all the Star Wars extended universe, extended canon, like the young Padawan who is unsure of their standing and their beliefs, for lack of a better term. That's not something that's necessarily new into our narratives in Star Wars. Would you agree, disagree? How do you feel about that? And does she do a lot to change herself out of the kind of weird stereotype that we've had? I'm not saying she's stereotypical, but
I don't know if it's new, but I definitely don't think it's common. Like, it's not like, I mean, we contrast her with Anakin, who's like, I'm the best at everything. Why are you not letting me be the best at everything? Like, it's a little bit of uncertainty, like pretty I guess it's not atypical, but I don't think it's like we're not seeing this all the time. I think what she does differentiate herself with the most is the amount she values her friends around her. You like, especially with the whole issue of Jedi and attachment, you don't see the level of friendship, I don't think, among Jedi as much. You might see a one-on-one, like you'll see like a Obi-Wan and Anakin being very close, or like Anakin and Ahsoka be very close, but you never see like a group of like 4 Jedi just like being total pals.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to bring up. I mean, we've seen a lot of Padawans have doubts in themselves, but nobody has ever had a support system like Lula has. And I think that's really cool. Although I think it could be, some breeding grounds for things like attachment, which I mean, arguably she already has, but at the same time, it's an argument for another time, but is that a bad thing? I don't know.
Exactly. The High Republic has definitely inner Jedi throughout this whole I was about to say experiment, but throughout this whole project, like Jedi and attachment seems to have been a very major theme that all the writers were on board with when they were when they're pinning their stories.
Speaking of that, you got Daniel Jose Older, this comic writer of Race to Crash Point Tower, and has one of my favorite. I've just voted for the Utenius today, and it bothered me that I didn't add this as a quote, but the conversation between Lula and Vern in Race to Crash Point Tower about attachment is one of the best Star Wars things I've read in years.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes, absolutely. That just hit me so hard. Sometimes I just want to go flip back through that book and read that part, because man, it was so good. I mean, again, like we said before, Lula has so many awesome role models around her, and Vern is another one of those that Daniel wrote in Race to Crash Point Tower, just giving her some of the best, most solid advice you could possibly get. It's amazing.
Yeah,
very nice.
Now that I've read Out of the Shadows, it even hits different. So
yeah, for sure, for sure.
Coming at me.
Look at you guys being all caught up with the canon series.
I'm not all caught up at all.
You're far more advanced than I am. Okay, so here's a fun thing. Since we're talking a bit about attachment and her friendships here, the very first issue does a lot of mirroring between Lula and Zine, very specifically. It is the first issue, they are doing direct parallels between the two, but it's not something that those direct parallels are not something that are necessarily cashed in on, or brought up again for the next 4 issues. Do we feel like the series should have focused more on those direct parallels, or were we happy with how they took these characters and they're still connected, but it's no longer the central point of the series as the first issue might have made it appear?
Well, I have to say first that when I saw the art in the first few pages with the first issue really, with the mirroring and stuff like that, I literally dropped the book and said out loud, dyad. Okay, follow me here. It is such strong dyad vibes. They are two halves of the same force energy or something like that. Yes, exactly. See what Jacob is showing, because this has dyad written all over it. I thought it was absolutely amazing, and I hope that we follow back up on that thread, because they didn't do that by accident. This was done on purpose. They were meant to find each other. You don't have to be a Jedi to be part of a dyad. I don't think that that's a rule. I think all you have to do is use the Force, which clearly she can. I mean, she held up this gigantic piece of falling debris from the sky with the Force. She's absolutely incredible, and so I hope that we follow up more on that thread. I wish that we got to focus a little bit more on Lula and Zine's budding relationship. I would say, they became fast friends, but Zine was focused quite a bit on Crix in this book, and I think it would have been cool to kind of explore. She's just met all these new people, basically just been thrown into a new family that she loves, and what is that like, getting to know them. But yeah, overall, I got dyad on the brain.
Yeah, I mean, I think more there's definitely I also had the same dyad thought at first, and I think just in general, it's just a nice way to show story parallels with artistic parallels. You have similar experiences across the this last panel. You still got you got the mirror thing, but it's Crix and Zine.
Yeah.
So
exactly
that kind of thing happens a few times. I think it's just creative visual storytelling is what I would say.
Okay. So since we were on the topic of Zine Morala is our force sensitive newbie to this whole sort of thing. I really liked her character a lot. She's kind of like the child of like this weird reclusive community that she had to hide her powers growing up.
It's a cult. We can just say
it's a
cult.
Okay, I kind of danced like when I was through the issues. I was like, I guess we should call it a cult, but like I guess we can go ahead and do that. But like she had to like hide her force powers growing up from like the fellow members of her cult. Is this the right decision, you guys think? Like what was going on there? Do you have any initial thoughts about that?
Yeah, I really this whole storyline hit me pretty hard because although it is not an experience I have shared, well, as in I have not shared this experience, I don't have this experience, not that I've not shared it with other people. No, it really struck me as a parallel to people who have been persecuted for coming out of the closet, because you have someone who comes out, shares an intimate thing about themselves that they cannot change, and is judged by people she thought were friends and family, and then is accepted into a found family, which we have a nice picture. If I go back a few panels, not the fight, not that, I don't know, there's a hugging panel in here somewhere. I'd maybe not have not included it, but yeah. She is accepted by a newfound family just because she's a good person, not because of these aspects about herself which she can't control. So it's like there's a hug in issue 5 amongst all the Jedi on the beacon with Zine, and that hit me pretty hard. And I think it's a great way to, again, if we're having an all ages comic, it's a great way to not necessarily be like, here is this real life issue that you might have to deal with. It's, hey kids, it's great to be accepting of people for whatever, that, like, if they're nice people, you don't have to like let them be them and just be a friend kind of thing.
I'm so glad you made that connection. Like, oh, that just made me feel so warm inside. I mean, the whole thing with her being accepted into the Jedi so quickly was so heartwarming, and it made me have a lot of like respect for the Jedi, because I highly doubt that the Jedi we know in like the prequel trilogy would do something like that.
Well, they obviously did everything they could not to accept Anakin because he was too old for these series.
Mm-hmm.
It's true. I mean,
too old to begin the training.
Well, and it's interesting that you say that, because they say that Zine's not old enough to be a Jedi, but they'd love to keep her around. And I just thought that was lovely. And let's face it, like, Star Wars is literally all about found family, and this is just like another one of those found family situations. And unfortunately, I think that like Crix's story is also kind of a found family, but in a really crappy way. Just, I guess, while we're on the topic. Yeah, I don't know. It's good. Zine is a very interesting character. I like that she's exploring her force abilities with Lula, in meditating and things like that, while also sort of not having any expectations on her of being a Jedi. She doesn't have to have the pressure of, the formality of the thing, and just exploring what the force feels like. And Zine said something in the comic, I don't remember the exact quote, but it was something like, she's never felt more comfortable in herself when she's around the Jedi. And that to me is like, that's the definition of a good found family. You feel comfortable around them, they accept you, you accept them, you love them, you have a good time with them. And it actually I couldn't help but think of like Utini when she said that. Like, you feel at home with this group of people. You share the same interests. You love each other. You do really cool things together. And Zine, I think everybody can see themselves even a little bit in Zine, and I think that's why she's such a great character.
Absolutely. I think, wow, we can put a nail on that whole subject there. Well done. That was anything else to add there?
No,
I don't think so.
Okay, well, let's keep this Zine train rolling. Now, I did allude to this, that it seems like the connection between Lula and Zine was kind of the first part of the driving force, but it very quickly became an issue, a kind of a fox and a hound between Zine and her childhood friend Crix. And they were the main driving plot of this force. like I really did like Crix's story aboard the Gates Electric with the Nihil. How do we feel like? Did we feel like she was pushing her side of the story enough? Do you feel like she was making the right decisions? Or you were engaged when you were around her with the Jedi compared to the other side of things?
That's an interesting question. I think I would say yes to that question. I think I was like, I was definitely more interested in Zine than Crix, and I think just because in general with the High Republic stuff, I am more interested in the Jedi of this era than I am with the Nihil. But I thought that her longing for still having Crix like in her life somehow was very interesting. It's like she wants to be with him, but knows that she shouldn't because he's not going to accept her, and he's also probably bad now. We know he is, but she doesn't know that. So yeah, I thought that dichotomy was interesting, like wanting to, like having a longing for someone, but knowing that you can't for multiple reasons.
Exactly. And one last little question before we move on to Crix. Do we feel like Zine is jumping from one cult to another cult? Do we feel like she's just swapping out her like really orthodox, very almost repressive sort of society for a different, maybe less repressive society? Like the Jedi, keep in mind, we are very used to seeing Jedi in the Clone Wars era and in, right before that era where they were very, very brown robes and staunch and very protective of their environments. We're definitely seeing a different side of the Jedi this 300 years ago, but do we feel like she is changing from one cult to another? How do you guys feel about that?
Yeah, I don't think so, and here's why. There was a part, I don't remember which issue it was in, but they were talking about what they should do about Zine on Starlight, and Lula said, well, we should ask the person whose opinion matters most, Zine's. And I think that it was clear to me that Zine has the option to leave when she wants, if she wants to, but she's choosing to stay because she truly enjoys the company of the people around her. So in that way, I do not think that she traded cults. I think that sometimes that line is kind of hard based on our history with our personal history with the Jedi, not like galactic history with the Jedi, and also the fact that the Jedi like are a what could be seen as a religious group of people that could be seen as somewhat controlling when you get into their ranks. But yeah, I would have to say no. I don't think that she swapped cults.
Yeah, I mean, even if she did, it's definitely an improved cult. Like we'll just
That's true.
Okay, perfect. Speaking of bad cults here and bad kids from a bad crowd, Crix. He's I know my little side note here is he a good kid in a bad crowd? Like, we'll dive into this a little bit more. How did we feel about his side of the story? Because again, it felt like not that they were pulling the wool out from under us, but when issue like 2 and 3 started and we were like really diving into his side of the story here, how did we feel when the story switched over to his perspective aboard the Gates Electric? Were we as engaged? Were we happy? Like, how was he as like a main character in the story?
Man, I did not like Crix. He drove me crazy. I did not like the way he treated Zine and was kind of like, I'll protect you, but at the same time, that like the underlying message is it's like the fine print in a contract. He's like, but only if you don't use your force powers. I thought that he was like, I don't know, just really controlling. Although in some ways I do feel bad for him because he doesn't have the situation that Zine has. Zine can leave the Jedi if she wants to. Crix cannot leave the Nihil. He would definitely be killed for doing that. So in a way, he is definitely trapped. And I think to go back to the cult thing, we have tiers of cults here. We've got the Nihil as the worst. We've got whatever they were on Triment 4, and then we have the Jedi. So yeah, Crix definitely is in the worst situation. I didn't like the way he treated Zine, and I still don't. I think he was kind of a jerk.
I really like Crix a lot, but then again, when I was rereading it, I was more focusing on his character for my various rereads. I think I'm really glad we got an idea of how a normal person, I use air quotes there for the audio listeners, can become a Nihil. Like we've heard and seen in the things like, we recruit people, that's a way to increase your ranks and you're standing in the Nihil, but like seeing firsthand how someone can be taken from like a nobody and then put into the Nihil as a member to ranks. And like, for lack of a better term, he was kind of very easily accepted into the Nihil. It's not like he had to go through like a trial, but like no one that we were seeing was like mean to him or cruel to him. It's not like he was like a prisoner aboard the air starship either. Definitely, he did have to go through a deadly bog snap sort of thing.
Yeah, he was emotionally manipulated to
True.
He was just.
But he was emotionally conditioned to being emotionally manipulative because of his cult background.
Yeah. All roads lead back to that original cult, man.
I don't know. Like, I started out being sympathetic to him, and I guess like part of me still can see the fact that not everything's his fault. But it's like I started out being sympathetic to him. I'm like, okay, well, like he's just a bad kid in a bad situation, and then he goes around and treats Zine like garbage. And I'm like, well, no, this guy sucks. Like,
he did do that. He did definitely treat his childhood friend like garbage. Though I forget of the exact order of operations. Did she try to force choke him first? No, he accidentally shot her out of the sky, not realizing it was her, and then she force choked him.
Yeah. I mean, I'd be pretty angry at him too, but obviously that doesn't like excuse that. And I thought that Lula, I'm glad that you brought up that moment because I think it's important that we talk about this. That was a very interesting moment with how Lula handled that when she came across Zine force choking Crix, how she just calmly said, "That's not how we do things." And I thought it was interesting. Like, she didn't get mad at her. She didn't chastise her. It was like a learning experience, like a learning opportunity. I thought that is very cool.
Exactly, because if it was Mace Windu, he would have chopped someone's arm off
and called them a citizen right after.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah, and so that's kind of Crix's character. There's a couple of smaller like side characters that play a little bit more into here. We do have to talk about him. Court, our strong silent type. Kind of our breakout character, this sort of thing. Like, a lot of people are instantly attached to him, but why is it that we're all drawn to these strong silent ones? Like, is there something about just them not filling up the pages with dialogue that makes us interested, like more attracted to them? Like, why do you think Court is so appealing, for lack of a better term?
I think this panel shows it pretty well, is that even though he doesn't say anything intelligible, he has a lot of like if you pay attention to him in the background of panels, he has a lot of like physical comedy that makes him very lovable. Like here, where like his eyes are X'd out and he's like being like looking like a mummy. And there's like one where he's in like just look, if you ever see a panel and Court's in it in the background, pay attention because he's probably doing some funny stuff. He's a very lovable.
The funny thing to me is like, isn't that a mask? And how are his eyes X'd out?
It's like it's like anime. Like, just whatever.
That's what makes it more funny to me though. Like it's just so it's like asking the question, why do people like Geode? I couldn't tell you, but I love him. Yeah. It's the same thing with Court. I love him. I couldn't tell you why. He's awesome.
Exactly.
I know that's like very helpful when we're trying to analyze things,
but sometimes less is more. And like, maybe we get to project a little bit more into Court, but as I said, or maybe the artist go a little extra in making him, his physicality, his characterization just a lot of fun. And like, we see a lot more of him in future episodes, and he's great. He is a lot of fun. The other one we kind of the one who takes up the lion's share of his dialogue is Farzala, the brain of the group. Like, you know, I personally liked Farzala a lot. I think he's the one I really enjoyed a lot. So when we see him a lot more in the next volume, it's really great. Kind of the wiser of the Padawan trio here. Now, here's my question. Is he truly wise, or does it just the fact that he has big old sideburns make him look smarter?
Both, I think. He does have like amazingly luscious hair. Yeah, I don't know. I think he definitely, he's wise beyond his years. He doesn't give me a Padawan vibe very often, which I think is cool. I love how Court's kind of his little sidekick. I think that's cool. Actually, when they were acting out the battle at Triment for the Jedi Masters, he was just so funny. He reminded me of somebody like trying to describe what happened in a Star Wars movie. It was incredible, kind of like what we would do, making sound effects with our mouths, and he has a love of life. I think that's just what I love about him so much.
Yeah, I will say I just think it's hard to I like him. I think it's hard to give an informed opinion on him until you talk about Volume 2.
Exactly.
I agree.
He's definitely playing second banana to in the story wise, but I'm glad you're setting him up for future things, you know. And then we did that. For those who don't know, in Volume 2, it focuses him on Court doing a mission, and then we kind of go back to the to Lula and Zine. But you know, that's kind of the main overarching characters. We have a couple others like Yoda and Buckets of Blood who do great character work here. But
speaking of Yoda, really quickly, I have to mention. It is now canon that Yoda makes pastry treats. So that's like my favorite thing to come out of the comics and forever. He said he brought Zine, who was upset. He brought her pastry treats, and Buckets of Blood was eating it. And then when they were in battle, Buckets of Blood was like, "Yo, Yoda, can I have your recipe, man? Those cookies were amazing." It's just peak content, really.
Buckets of Blood main character arc is just learning how to bake. It's great.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now
it'll be the next spin-off comic. That's what Dark Horse is working on, guys.
Especially, well, Greg Pak is doing a cookbook, so maybe DSO can do one as well.
Oh, really? Oh, amazing. Yeah, we should definitely have Yoda and Torben Buck's recipe of awesome
the Blade of Bardata, Ingle Porter's 6 egg stew.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
exactly. All right, let's see here. Should we now move on to some of these larger overarching plot questions here, I guess?
I believe we have a clip from Mason about what he thought of some characters.
Yeah, let's roll that beautiful footage.
My favorite character was Crix because he went to from a good guy becoming a bad guy so quickly and suddenly, because in the first book he just turned from a good guy from a bad guy out of nowhere. He just got mad that they threw him on the ship and he became a bad guy somehow.
I knew I liked him. Great choice.
I can't say I agree with you, Mason, but you know, I gotta respect it.
Just out of nowhere, became a bad guy. That's how it works.
That's just how it goes. You know, you wake up on the wrong side of the bed. Suddenly you're holding entire solar system's ransom.
Yeah, all right, exactly.
All right, so let's get into some of these big plot questions. Okay, so for a majority of the story, we're dealing with two childhood friends who are thrust apart. We saw this story a little bit in Lost Stars, our UT's GOAT, essentially, but maybe not so much more in other Star Wars stories. This is a fun story. Do we feel like we need to see more of this? Like, how do we feel about this like character arc that we're seeing play out here?
I think it's cool. I like the premise. I think I would like to see more of it in the future. I do think it's more interesting, maybe if they were like fighting for the same cause, or both generally good or generally bad, and to sort of be separated by some sort of a circumstance. I think what frustrated me about sort of their relationship and being separated was how it ended on like a really bad note.
Oh,
because
definitely.
Neither of them were happy with the other, and now they're separated and can't fix it. And I think that, to me, like, it just like bothered me because I would hate that. So yeah, I don't know. I do like that storyline of being separated, but wish it ended better for them.
Exactly. Like, I was like, Star Wars Visions, like, there are a lot of ones that needed some follow-up from, and we needed to see more of those stories. There was the one of the two Force twins, the good one and the bad one, the one by Trigger, and that was a really like dynamic visually one. I would like to see maybe where that goes from the future, because again, like, having I'm kind of a sucker for a story, and I think Star Wars needs a few more stories where they can tell stories from both the good guy and the bad guy perspective, so we have a more dynamic view of what this universe is doing here. I just got through reading was it Lost Jedi? No,
Dooku Jedi Lost.
No, not that one. Dark Disciple.
Dark Disciple, yeah, it's a good one.
And that was a great one to see, like, kind of like a first person narration and what the Night Sisters are up to and what those sorts of magics were done. And I love when Star Wars expands beyond beyond the movies. That's why I'm here with this community, so I can help engage in the EU sort of discussions. So that sort of good guy, bad guy, split at birth sort of thing gives us so much like range of a story, so much more range of and world building explanation. So like, this is like some of the most in-depth parts of watching how some of the Nihil structure works that we've seen in some of these ones. So I'm really glad that we got to see this.
Yeah, I agree.
Absolutely. So speaking of Nihil and accepting here, on the flip side, I think we touched on this a little bit, but the Jedi do accept Zine among them pretty much without any issue. Do you think this is wise for the Jedi, or do you think they're being naive?
I think it's pretty typical what you would expect from a High Republic era Jedi. Like, they're much more, I think, much more in tune with the galaxy around them than what we're used to, and I think they're much more willing to be open and caring for people. Like, especially if you read the Insider issue short stories, going full nerd, I mean, like, you have you see the inner workings and like the day-to-day operations of Starlight Beacon, where you're like taking in people like from around the galaxy who need medical care or like some like whatever, like, whenever there's someone in need, they're willing to go out and help them. And I don't think it's too out of the question for, hey, you have this person who is ostracized from their community. Also, their planet basically got blown up, or their moon. They live on moon. Yeah. So, like, what are they gonna do? Well, I guess if no one else is gonna take care of them, then the Jedi are gonna take care of them until they get some figured out. So, I think it makes sense. Although, we see that a little bit in another High Republic story, and it doesn't go very well for the other person. But yeah, I think it makes sense.
Absolutely. So let's run down this one. Oh yeah, so speaking of Jedi, and like you touched on this a bit, but Zine and Crix's like previous community was very, very adamantly anti-Jedi. Do we feel like that fear is maybe justified in the greater Star Wars universe? Do we feel like maybe telling your kids to stay away from Jedi would be something that we would do in the Star Wars universe? I don't know. How do you guys feel about that?
Oh, that's an interesting question. Would we be skeptical of Jedi if they were in our universe? That's interesting. I think I'll say first, I would be interested in learning what exactly happened to make them distrust the Jedi so much. Like, there had to be something that happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then the second thing that I will say is that I think a lot of the problem that people in the galaxy have with Jedi is just that they're mysterious. Like, how do they, if everybody has the Force, how come they have these like crazy powers, and how come some people have different ways to wield the Force and other people don't. Like, I think that there's a lot of mystery around them, and people don't like what they don't know, I think, is what it boils down to.
Exactly. Like, I would be nervous around, like, personally speaking, I'd be nervous around like some sort of essentially government agent who has free reign to do whatever they want and can also bend your will to match your own or their own. Like a concept of having like someone who is so far even above the law that normal rules of physics don't apply to them, and like having no regulation over them, would seem like a lot of people would be relatively anti-Jedi here.
Yeah, I was like, yeah, like Emma said, if there's a reason, then it's a little bit more understandable. And I'm pretty sure, I don't know exactly what it is, but I know where they're going with it. And that's Elder Tromac mentions in issue 5 or issue 4, I think issue 4 or 5, that he had met Yoda on Dalna. And we know, like, the Dalnans don't like the Jedi. Something had gone down there before.
Oh, right.
So that's some lore stuff right there. Yeah, so I think in the next phase of books, we will probably find that out.
Exactly, because the other thing is the whole reason why Elder Tormac is working with the Nihil is because he has secret knowledge of a very distinctly anti-Jedi weapon that a Nihil desperately wants. So do you think Elder Tormac and that cult, is made a reason they have this weapon is because of their distrust for Jedi, or maybe they've learned a distrust of Jedi because they have this weapon?
I think so. Yeah, like I think that Elder Tromac was kind of more willing to help the Nihil get the weapon because of their dislike of and distrust of Jedi. I do think that it seemed that he was starting, although he wasn't fully trusting, he was starting to trust Yoda a little bit more. I think after he saw how the Jedi truly cared for their people in the escape on Triment 4, even though they didn't trust them, they didn't trust the Jedi, but the Jedi weren't going to leave them behind, and I think he respected that. So I think he's going to change his mind. I think he's going to regret whatever he's done. And I think whatever he's done is going to have some big consequences.
Yeah, absolutely. So one last question before we get into the Easter eggs. And this is an our kind of one. So on board the Gaze Electric, he has an entire Bo Gareth entire fighting ring here. Like that seems like such a wild thing to have aboard your personal starship. Like, they didn't go to the space station. They didn't go planet side. You're like, oh, I have an entire bullfighting rink in my ship. Like, what sort of sports arena do you think like other Nihil have? Do you think aboard the Lorna D, she has like a giant like tennis court or something?
Definitely something like big game hunting or something, and she just gets a bunch of like wild animals and lets them run free and shoots them off, something like that.
Say for her, I could see a Blurg racetrack.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Yeah, absolutely, some sort of racetrack there. Like that just seems to be like a weird thing. Like, I guess like on every single Nihil ship, they have to have at least like one foosball table for every like 5 people.
Yeah, I mean, they need to be entertained. They need something to gamble on. They need something that's dangerous. If somebody crosses them, they need a pit to throw them into. It's standard procedure, man.
Yeah, and Kasav's ship definitely had like a nightclub somewhere in there.
Oh yeah,
absolutely. Well, I imagine the entire ship was essentially a nightclub.
Yeah,
like
true.
Like everyone has their own personal smoke machine walking around.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And like what was that, like punk, or what is it called? Punk rock?
Rec
punk, yeah. Rec punk is playing like all the time, even at night when you're trying to sleep.
Sleep on Kasa's ship? Nah, we got uppers for that.
Strobe lights and
smash bulbs and rec punk.
Oh yeah.
All right. So Jacob, let's end out with some normal tradition. You did a deep dive through Wikipedia and pulled out a couple things. So what sort of Easter eggs lie beneath the surface of volume number 1.
I have a handful, not too many. I tried to like if there's like something where it's like, hey, this was mentioned in Light of the Jedi, unless it was like significant, I'm not gonna be like, oh hey, yeah, that. But I picked out a few. So the Tremont system, which we started on, that disaster is mentioned in Daniel Jose Older's From a Certain Point of View, Empire Strikes Back story about 4LOM and Zuckuss. And then on Marchion's ship, not the Gaze Electric, but his little like spider ship, Yoda finds a box that glows purple, and that is a teaser for something that happens in Wave 2 or Phase 2, right? Like Wave 2. Wait, no, Wave 2 of Phase 1.
And I get so confused with it.
Wave 2, Phase 1. All right. Yeah, so that's a teaser. If you've read Rise of Storm, you know what I'm talking about. Elder Tromak tells Crix about the Carvashark ruins, which show up in the first issue of Trail of Shadows. Then the junk moon of Quan Chi was first mentioned in the novel Aftermath Life Debt by Chuck Wendig. And it contained in that book the Emperor's Yacht, the Imperialis, which is the same one that was wrecked from the Lando miniseries.
No way! That's so cool.
Easter egg, yeah, all across all these things.
Oh my god.
So then Yoda and Tromak, actually, here we go. They met on Dalna in the past, and Dalna has been name dropped a ton throughout the High Republic, and is the home planet of the main character, or one of the main characters from A Test of Courage, Honesty Weft. Then you have Savrip, which is like the big monster in like the issue 4.
No, issue 5 is that
issue 5.
It's one that the locals on the junk moon summon with their tin cans.
Yeah, the giant like monster thing. That's the Savrip species is one of the pieces of Djarik or space chess. Here's a fun one. Quart, he like speaks in intelligible language the whole time. Well, here's the thing. It's not actually unintelligible. Someone figured out like a few months ago that it's using a font type called Xeno Tribal. You can just Google Xeno Tribal font and transcribe what he's saying. I have not done so. But apparently it's usually, he still is like speaking 1 to 2 words every speech bubble, so it's not like anything crazy. But yeah, you can figure out what he is saying.
No way. That is insane.
And then thank you, internet.
Lastly, we see at the end of the issue, or at the end of the volume, we see Yoda and Elder Tromak flying over this planet or moon, trying to figure out what's going on with the Nihil. And he's left in a bit of an uncertain state, and flashing forward, we haven't seen him in a while, but his fate is at least somewhat explained in Race to Crash Point Tower. There's a little Easter egg that kind of hints to what happened to him, and if you pay very close attention, you might see that. So, yeah, those are the Easter eggs from Volume 1.
Yeah, good job as always. I remember when I was reading Race to Crash Point Tower, I didn't pick up on it, and you were the one that actually told me about it. So I was thankful for that.
Because it was from our interview with Daniel Jose Older. Because when we did it, you and Eric had read it because you're on the review team, and I had not read it yet. Yep. So he's like, "There's an Easter egg with Yoda." So I was like, just like staring at every page, like, "Where is Yoda?"
Yeah, I was like, I felt pretty dumb too. He was like, "Yeah, did you catch that thing with Yoda?" And I was like, "Oh my God, should I have?" But it's pretty hard to catch.
Yeah, like it doesn't mention
paying attention.
His name's not mentioned, I don't think, once in the entire book. So.
Yeah, you gotta be eagle-eyed. All right, so before we go around and re-rate it, I'd like to hear from Mason one more time. He is going to tell us about his favorite moments in this book.
Oh. My favorite part is when when Crix thought that Zine was a Jedi and got a rocket launcher and Zine. Yeah, I liked it because somehow when in the first story they were best friends, all lovey-dovey, and then all of a sudden, take that! Ha 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 ha.
Wow.
Oh my goodness. I love a rocket launcher too, Mason. I mean, you're right, man.
I think I'm just being reminded that Mason is a young boy, and it's like, yeah, seeing the dude shoot down the girl
A
ship.
spaceship.
Yeah.
It's great. And it was that was a fun thing. I think if I had to say my favorite moment, it would be the one right after that, like the confrontation on the junk heap, as like it starts with the two of them, Crix and Xena, like are Zine and Crix, talking and arguing, like the escalation of that, and then the Nihil show up and try to take him away, and then the Jedi show up, and then the next Nihil ship shows up. I love that escalation of that entire conclusion there. But yeah, he's absolutely right. Shooting that down with the rocket launcher, peak Star Wars. Really great.
I think this is a very good showing or just a way to show how these all ages comics they are for everyone, because you have the Crix shooting down the spaceship for the Masons of the world, but then you have the found family story for the adults of the it's also for Mason too, but that's gonna we are probably gonna appreciate that more than him, at least right now. So I it's great that you can have a little something for everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you to Mason for doing that. I know Tyler had an absolute blast hanging out with Mason and asking him some questions. It was really cute that Mason wanted to, he wrote notes on the book. So I thought that was just awesome. And it was fun for us to hear it from a kid's perspective. So that was awesome. Let's re-rate the book before we get on out of here. I will start with where we began, and that is Caleb. Caleb, do you change your rating?
Absolutely. I think talking more about this, and I'm reminded of all the good parts I really, really enjoyed on my first read through. It does a great job of setting things up. I really love the narrative structure. I think I said it was a 7.5 the first time around. I'll make this a big up. I'll say 8.5. It's absolutely worth a read. You should find it at your local store, pick it up, and just really enjoy it. It's definitely worth reading all the way through.
Awesome. Jacob, how about you? Do you change your rating?
There are some of the things that I had forgotten about, that having talked about like thematically and stuff like that I probably didn't appreciate as much. So in my initial rating, so I'll bump it up to I'm gonna go a 9.25. So yeah, I've definitely, again, highly recommend it. Obviously, you can be a Mason, you can be a Tyler, you can be anyone and still enjoy this comic. So I would highly recommend it. 9.25 is my final rating.
Very good. I started at an 8.5. I think I'm going to go up to an 8.7. It was really, really enjoyable. I think that these characters are going to be really important moving forward. There's a lot of hints at some stuff that's going to be extremely important going forward and has already come to fruition in some books. I love the humor in it. I love that the humor didn't take away from any of the serious plot points of it. It just added to it. The writing was astounding. The art was fantastic. Like, there were so many big battle spreads that I could look at for like 20 minutes and find something new in it. So the art was absolutely stunning. Overall, just really enjoyable. I love the characters all the characters really, but Zine was a huge standout, and Lula as well. So really, really good stuff. So next week, we are going to, not next week, later this month, my bad. We are going to be doing a War of the Bounty Hunters roundtable, because the trade paperback for War of the Bounty Hunters, the main issues, so 1 through 5, and the alpha is out. So later this month, we will be doing a roundtable on that, and we will give you a more specific date when we have one. All right, with that, that'll do it for episode 31 of the Cosmic Force. Don't forget to like and subscribe the show right here on YouTube, where you can hear us every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern. We also encourage you to subscribe to our audio version on whatever podcast platform you listen to. Be sure to visit utini.com for reviews, articles, and news for the entire expanded universe. We encourage you to join our Utini Discord community by joining utini.com/Discord. And you can help support the show by heading to Patreon at patreon.com/Utini. and start receiving exclusive perks starting at just $5 a month. Special thank you to JG Kars, OK Endar, Cheryl Bell, Patrick Ortiz, Carl Sander, and Earl Q on our Jedi High Council, and Matt Billington, Elizabeth Cloutier, Jason Mitchell, Freddie C., and Sally and Chris Eilerson on our Alliance High Command for their amazing support. You can tweet at the show at Cosmic Force Show or at the host individually. I'm at IrmaJedi26, Caleb is at Caleb Lamanek, and Jacob is at Jacob Bausch. Thanks again to Caleb, Jacob, and special guest Mason for hosting with me. A special thank you to those of you who tuned in live tonight and to our listeners in the future. We truly appreciate you. See everyone next week, and may the Force be with you.